Hi, I'm Libby Williams.
And I'm Leah Yeager.
We are Group 2, and we will be presenting the genres of writing, introduction to arguments, and 3 ways to respond.
Studying the genres of writing section from Everyone's an Author, the introduction to arguments section from the Little Sequel Handbook, and the 3 ways to respond section from the They Say I Say book.
Okay, so genres of writing from Everyone's an Author. The sections are choosing genres, arguing a position, this is where I stand, writing a narrative, here's what happened, writing analytically, let's take a closer look, reporting information, just the facts, writing a review, 2 thumbs up, and making a proposal, here's what I recommend. For choosing genres, what you need to know about genres of writing. When choosing genres, you want to know what goals you want to accomplish within your audience. You want to adapt them to your own rhetorical situations. You need to remember genres are flexible. You wouldn't write a sonnet the same way you would write a lab report. A sonnet is more creative, and then a lab report is more analytical and scientific. Genres are also always evolving, like letters have evolved from when they were written, like the Renaissance period, they used to send them through like carrier pigeons, and that eventually evolved into emails and then evolved into texting and calling. So that has evolved in a big way. And deciding what genres to use, you want to look for clues in your assignment. You want to look for keywords like report or analysis or narrative. Those will tell you what you're going to be, what your writing style should be like. You wouldn't analyze something like philosophy versus literature the same as well. And if you can't find any clues in your assignment, you can think of, didn't mean to do that. You can think of what discipline your writing is. Like, is it, are you reporting? Are you going to be arguing? Look for keywords like that. What's the topic? Are you going to be analyzing or comparing presidential speeches, or are you going to be reporting an experiment? That's some of what you want to look for. You also want to look for what your purpose in the writing will be. Are you going to convince and argue with or something on a like on a political aspect, or are you going to report something on a political aspect? You also want to take in account of what your audience is. Are you going to be writing to like other students like in our class, or are you going to be writing to the general public? Because your terms that you would use and the evidence that you would use would be different. You also want to know what your medium is. Are you going to be doing an oral presentation like this, or are you going to be writing an essay? Because then you can decide what like graphics or something to back you up would be, and what yeah. So arguing a position, let me move this. Okay. Across academic disciplines, position papers are written in many different fields. Like philosophy, you could write a brief persuasive essay, or in political science, you would write critiques on someone's speech and interpret them. Across medias, position papers don't have to be papers based on the media you're using. They can be web pages or essays, oral presentations, which oral presentations often use PowerPoints. They can also be TV commercials. One example would be like animal abuse campaigns on TV, that would be the ASPCA, or a web page talking about the dangers of it, or an essay talking about why you need to protect animals. There's just so many different ways to get your point across. And when you're arguing a position between different cultures or different communities that you're not used to, you want to make sure you're taking into account language barriers, because you don't want to say something and have it come across rude or improper in another language or culture. And then across genres, you are arguing a position across genres all day, every day, whether you're writing a letter to your senator about a bill that passed and how you feel about it, or if you're just tweeting about a movie you just saw, tweeting your thoughts on it, that's arguing a position across genres. So, characteristic features. An explicit position is easier said than done. You need to have the qualifications. You don't want to use words like all, because not everyone's going to be in the majority with you. Not everyone's going to have the same thoughts about it as you. You want to use words like expect or might. You don't want to overstate your opinion. You want to be open to what other people say. And in response to what others have said and done, one example is after the 2016 election, Lin-Manuel Miranda released a video, and it was about like immigrants, we get the job done, which I don't know if anyone has like listened or seen Hamilton, but it's just like basically them talking about how immigrants are beneficial to the country, and it's trying to show everyone that immigration is not a bad word and what good they do for the country. Appropriate background information. It's going to be different for the type of position you state depending on what media you use. Like, for example, an essay about climate change, you're going to need a lot of like background information. And that's going to be different if you're doing like a poster for something. Like if you want to raise awareness about tuition at your college, if you think it's too high, you're not going to need as much background information for that because people aren't going to be expecting that on a poster. A clear indication of why the topic matters. So you want to show your personal experience to show why you think something matters. An example in the book was Melody Hobson. She's a Black woman. She works for press, and her friend who was running for Senate's office asked her to come meet with him at lunch. And when they got there, they assumed that they were the kitchen staff just because they were Black. So she shared her personal experience about this. And that was her indication of why the topic matters. Reasons and evidence. Your position is only as good as the reasons and evidence that support them. So you want to make sure that you have good reasons and evidence so it supports your position. And you also want to pay attention to more than one point of view, because people kind of get lost when you're only talking about one point of view. They don't want to hear just one side. They want to hear that you're open to other ideas, because they don't want to think you're just only in this like tunnel vision where you're only seeing one thing. You want to use an authoritative tone because you want people to think you know what you're talking about. You want to speak confidently. For example, if you're talking about smoking, you know that smoking causes cancer. Everyone knows that. You want to get that point across, but you don't need to keep reiterating it because everyone knows that. To appeal to readers' values, you want to know their audience and their values. The immigration example. So an appeal to readers' values, for the immigrant example, you want to appeal to them because you know what immigrants care about. They care about the country and they care about fitting in the country. And you just want to know your audience and their values and what they're going to care about when you write your position. So arguing a position / a roadmap. You want to know your topic. It should matter to you, and you should know it should matter to others. It should matter to the audience you're writing to. Find what interests you. There's going to be a position that interests you. Everyone has opinions on something. So you want to make it something that you will actually enjoy writing about because it'll make it easier for you. Should be arguable. You don't want to do just about the fact that smoking causes cancer because everyone knows that. If you want to do something on that topic, you could do something like tobacco causes deaths and do about that, and if the pros or what people believe about that topic. You want to keep an open mind. You don't want to be so tunnel vision, like I said. You want to have an open mind where you have different point of views that go into your position, which could you could mention in a counterclaim in your argument. You want to know your audience. You want to know your purpose. You want to know your stance and your context, and then your media and design. You want to know who you're writing to. You want to know why you're writing to them. You want to know where you're coming from for your position. And then you want to know how you're getting it across to people. Are you writing an essay? Are you doing an oral presentation? And then what designs are you going to include to get your point across? When you finally start writing, you don't want to be on the fence. You want to have an explicit position. You want to have your solid position. You want people to know what you're talking about. You want people to know what side you're on for your argument. That's what makes it a good argument. When you finally start writing, you want to start with your thesis. You want to have that laid out. And then you go on with your body paragraphs and you use your evidence that you've collected and your resources that you've collected. And then you go on to your counter argument. Most positions have a counter claim argument. It shows that you have an open mind. And then you can go back to your opening and find like an attention grabbing piece that you can start off your position with. And then you go to your conclusion and figure that out. When you're finished, you want to look critically at your draft, get responses from people, get responses from your peers or your teacher, and you want to revise it. Some questions you could ask is, how is your background information? Does it support what you're saying? How's your opening? Is it accurate? Does it make sense with what you're talking about? Is your information explicit? Is your position explicit? Is your cited work trustworthy? You got to check and make sure that is accurate and trustworthy and credible. Did you treat all positions fairly? Does your counterclaim, are you fair in your counterclaim? Or are you just saying, yeah, I guess it could go the other way? And is the style you used appropriate? Okay, I'm trying to. Writing a narrative, here's what happens. Across academic disciplines, narrative is common in many classes. In composition classes, you could be writing about how you learned to read or write. In history class, you could be writing about archives and creating a narrative from it. In medicine, you could be writing about a patient account. And in science, you could be writing about lab reports and how an experiment was conducted. Across media, narratives play a huge role in storytelling. For example, TVs, movies, documentaries, books, they're all a form of storytelling and all forms of narratives. Communities and cultures. Storytelling is a huge part of many communities and cultures. Narratives are told often in many cultures, such as the Native Americans. They tell stories to their families and they get passed down from generation to generation, and that keeps their communities and cultures in touch and strong. Across genres, when you're writing a narrative, you want to think what genre is going to fit it. Like a fantasy would be probably best written as like a book or as a movie. And characteristic features, clearly identified event, what happened, who was involved. You want to make it clear what happened in your story and your narrative. Make it clear by who was involved. Use descriptive writing. Don't leave too much to the imagination. You want people to understand your story. Clearly describe setting, when and where did it happen. Stories are typically in chronological order, which makes it clear when and where everything happened. You want to follow this to have a cohesive and descriptive story. Vivid descriptive details. This is what makes the story come alive. You want to use intricate details. You want to be descriptive. You want to be imaginative. This is what makes your story interesting and makes it come alive. A consistent point of view. Who's telling the story? You want to make the point of view clear. You don't want to confuse your readers. They want a clear story. This is what makes a good story a good story. And a clear point. Why does the story matter? Make a point of why your story matters. Your story matters, so prove it. Nothing irritates an audience more than having a story that doesn't have a point at the end. They want a conclusion that's going to satisfy them. Writing a narrative / a roadmap. Narratives are often personal and they often matter to you. You want to choose one that does, it will be easier. And if you can't choose one that does, you want to make it matter to you somehow. Connect it to something in your life and it will make it a lot easier to write. Again, you want to consider your audience, your purpose, your stance, your context, text, your medium, and your design. Your stance, is it a personal story? If not, it's okay. Just find what's interesting about it and find your stance on it. And context, what are the issues on your narrative? What other information is out there about this narrative, about what you're writing? Are there other published stories about this topic? Find a way to relate it to that or completely flip it from that. And deciding on a point of view, you decide if it's first person or third person, whatever feels most comfortable for you. You want to make the writing process as easy as possible. And I skipped explore your topic and do any necessary research. If it's a personal story, you don't need to do that much research. Just to get all the information out, a good way to do that is to do free writing to generate ideas. And if not, you can do research if it's not one of your own personal experiences. When you start writing, you start with your thesis and then you move chronologically, because most narratives are written chronologically. And then you can go back to your opening, like writing position paper, and then you'll go to your conclusion to conclude everything. And when you're getting it revised, you want to get it revised by peers and teachers again, and then you can ask questions like, is the point of view clear? Is the setting clear? Is the point of the story clear? Is the story easy to follow, where will your audience understand what you're saying? And does it have concrete and vivid details? Writing analytically, let's take a closer look. So across academic disciplines, writing analytically will be different. In history, you might write or you might analyze Russia's defeat of the Napoleon army, while in biology, you might analyze the body's response to exercise and how that is. Across media, writing analytically is different. If you're writing an essay, it's going to be in paragraphs. You might include photos or text or diagrams that can help you get your point across. You just need to make it clear. If you're doing an oral presentation, you might use a PowerPoint behind you that also has like graphics or word choices or even audio that can help you get your point across. Across cultures and communities, an example, different religions might analyze very similar texts in different ways. Across genres, analysis plays a huge role in all forms of writing. Position pieces, you analyze them first before you start making a position on them. And in reports, you analyze the data before you start writing about the report. Characteristic features, a question that prompts you to take a closer look. All questions require analysis, so take a better look. The author may not specifically articulate the question that they're asking in it, but it will drive the analysis once you find it in the text. Some description of the subject you're analyzing. You want to describe what you're analyzing so your audience understands. Like Game of Thrones. Most people have heard of it, not everyone knows what it's about. I personally have not seen it. So if I was reading an article about something in the Game of Thrones for like school, I wouldn't know what it was about, so I need a little bit of background information. Evidence drawn from close examination of the subject. Analysis is based off of what you analyze. It would be different based off of what you're analyzing, sorry. For like a poem, you would look at the word choice, the rhyming schemes, the figurative language, the imagery in it. But if you're analyzing a magazine, it's going to be a lot different because there's none of that in it. In a magazine, you'd be looking at the color they used, or the fonts they used, or the figure, the logo placement in the magazine itself. And then insight gained from your analysis. This kind of relates to the religion example again. If these religions get together and talk about what they think about the text they analyze, then they can find some common ground and find something in common. Clear, precise language. You want your audience to follow what you're saying. You know the subject you're talking about. You are confident in the subject. You've analyzed it. You've thought about it. You need to show your audience that you're confident and that you know what you're talking about. Then visual analysis. You want it to be attention grabbing if it's not like in an essay. If it's like a text, like in this PowerPoint, the graphic we have up there, it's attention grabbing. If it's an essay, you need to have describing words to get the audience or reader's attention. You want to provide context for your visual analysis. Explain why it's there and what it means. For our example, it says, I'm texting while driving, while someone's like texting while driving. And then the slide over is the Grim Reaper typing LOL. So this is the contrast of the driver and then the Grim Reaper. So they're alive, but then the Grim Reaper is there, and it's funny because they're texting them and they're obviously going to die because That's what the graphic is up there saying, and telling about texting while driving. So it's basically saying, oh, if you text while driving, you're going to die. And that's what the point they're trying to get across. Okay, writing analytically / a roadmap. Again, you want to find a topic that matters to you and to others. It'll make it a lot easier to analyze something. You want to look for your audience. You want to take into account their age, gender, cultural backgrounds, how they were raised. This is going to make it easier to who you're going to write to. That's goes with your stance. How do you want to come across to these people? Take into account what you know about them, and also aligns with your purpose. What are you analyzing and why? Why do you want to get this point across to them this way? You also need to take into account your context, your media, and your design. You want to make sure you're getting it across the way like you would, like this graphic we have is really targeted at any drivers, but I know a lot of teens, like in high school, like us, would benefit from it just because the phone is so tempting even when you're driving. And when you start your writing process, you can use your evidence to support your body paragraphs. You can lay that out, and then you can start with your thesis, then go into the body paragraph, and then end with your conclusion. And you don't want to rely too heavy on your evidence in that, because it is your own analysis. Don't rely on other cited sources that you're using. You can rely on your own beliefs since it's yours. And when you're getting feedback for your draft, you want to ask questions like, is the analysis clear? Does it prove your point? Does it show your point? And are your sources that you use credible? And do they connect to what you're talking about? Writing a review, 2 thumbs up. Across academic disciplines, performing arts is one thing that could be reviewed. You could review a play or a musical. Another thing is art, like you could review an art exhibit, you could write an article, what you thought about it. Another thing is in business, you could be reviewing a product, or you could be reviewing a business plan. Across media, reviews can appear in any media. It can be in print, in a magazine, in a newspaper, or it can even be on YouTube. Someone could be reviewing an album on YouTube. Across cultures and communities, reviews are important in cultures and communities because it reflects what you think of the topic as a group. It's also important in medical communities and academic communities, because if you're reviewing a medicine, you want to know if it's effective and if it's safe and if it's okay to use on other people. Across genres, reviews, you'll need to evaluate reviews and analyze reviews. Consumer Reports often analyze smartphones, and you need to analyze them before you can rank them and give them a good review or a bad review. Characteristic features, relevant information about the subject. You want to make the review relevant. You don't want to, like, say you're reviewing a work computer for someone and you're making a video or writing an article about it. You would review the computer on its working ability. You wouldn't review it on its ability to be a gaming computer. Criteria for the evaluation. You want to lay out what you'll be evaluating. Will you be using qualitative, quantitative, or both? Say you're doing a car review, you would review the price, the style, the comfort, the safety, the mileage. This would all be different if you were reviewing a computer, and it would even be different if you're reviewing a Tesla. Like, you wouldn't have mileage. For gas, you would have it for like electricity or battery. A well-supported evaluation. Whatever your review needs to reassure the claim. Like if a car is safe, how do you know? How do you know it's safe? How did you test the car to be safe? Did you have a crash test dummy? Did you crash the car? You need to write about that. Awareness of ethics of reviewing. A review can be very different depends on what it is reviewing. If you're reviewing a movie, that can be a lot different than reviewing a high school play. If you're reviewing a movie and you give it a bad review, that could tank the box office and it wouldn't perform well and it wouldn't make money. But if it's on a high school play, if you gave it a bad review, it in reality wouldn't make too much of a difference. Okay, writing a review slash a roadmap. Again, you want to choose something to review that you find interesting. Choose an interesting angle. You can review something obscure or unique. You just want to make it interesting to you. Again, consider your audience, your purpose, your stance, your context, your media, and design. What is expected from your audience? What do they expect from you? Who are you reaching with your review? How will you persuade them upon your review? How will you persuade them to buy something or to not buy something? And purpose, why are you reviewing for them? What motivates you to do it? And your stance, are you enthusiastic about it? Are you open to the idea of it? Are you skeptical about it? How do you want to come across to your audience? And your context, how do you consider all the other information on it? And then your media and design, how are you going to get it across to them? Again, if you're trying to get it across to the older generation, maybe a commercial on the news, or if it's to teenagers through social media. Making a proposal, here's what I recommend. Across academic disciplines, business proposals and experiment proposals are most commonly used. Also public policy proposals to make the community a better place. Across media, many proposals are used on Kickstarter or like places like GoFundMe to get people's projects or ideas started. They use like heartfelt tactics, words, or videos to put people in their feels and get them to donate them or to feel for them on a special cause. Across cultures and communities, schools often come together and make a proposal to make a change in the school. For example, at Bartram last year, there was the whole dress code scandal, and a bunch of girls came together to try to get the dress code changed to be more fair, or just to make a difference about it. Across genres, many reviews and reports end in proposals, like they want to improve society, so they take actions and they'll end talking about social issues and a course of plan and how to get the proposal moving. Characteristic features, a precise description of the problem. A proposal cannot be made if it isn't thought out. You need to use evidence and be clear. One example in the book was how junk food can end obesity. The writer of that article talked about how it's the fast food industry's problem and how they need to introduce healthier foods to get people who are buying fast food often on a healthier lifestyle. A clear and compelling solution to the problem. You want to show reasons why the proposal will work. Use evidence. An example in the book was talking about gun violence and how you want to, one, promote safety, two, produce factors for those who need help, and intervene if those individuals become violent. Three, evidence that your solution will address the problem. You want to use statistics, so like March for Our Lives statistics would be good to use for the last example. Acknowledgement of other possible solutions. You want to make sure you have other point of views in mind. You don't want to, again, be tunnel vision and have this way is the only way. You want to be open to other things, what other people can say. A statement of what your proposal will accomplish. You want to show what could happen if you follow through with the proposal. You want to be detailed to get people on your side for it. Writing a proposal / a roadmap. You, again, want to think of a problem that is attainable for you to solve. You want to center it around yourself. Like in reality, you wouldn't be able to change all fast food restaurants to provide healthier options to, end obesity. But at your school, you might be able to make a change and look for healthier options to eat. And your rhetorical situation, you want to consider, again, your audience, your purpose, your stance, your context, your media, and your design. What does your audience want to hear? What are you going to tell them? What do you want to get them on board with? What motivates you to make this proposal? Proposals are often made when people are enthusiastic about a project. What are you enthusiastic about? Why are you doing this proposal? Stance, word choice. You don't want to scare people off with your word choice. You want to be open and accepting to other people's ideas. And then your context in media and design. What is it, the proposal about? What media are you going to get it across to? Again, you got to think of your audience when you're thinking about media and design.
So for key elements of an argument, you need a clear and arguable position. A clear and arguable position is one that doesn't really rely on opinionated facts, statements, anything that's subjective to the reader or a specific group that doesn't really work when communicating with a general audience. You can't use proven facts as a basis for your position. And you also can't use religion or anything like faith or belief oriented, because it might distract from your topic and again, alienate your audience. So necessary background information, you have to make sure that your readers are informed of what you're going to be talking about. If you're talking about like self-driving cars, you have to make sure that your readers understand what a self-driving car is. You have to make sure that they're informed before you start really like getting into the details of it, because if they're lost at the beginning of your writing, chances are that the rest of your writing is not going to go along very well. Good reasons. When you choose your reasons for your writing, make sure that you can have multiple sources that can back that up and that it's credible and everything has been like checked multiple times, and make sure that it's important to your reason. Don't pick evidence just because like, oh, this supports my claim. Make sure that it's actually helpful in what you're going for and your writing. Again, convincing evidence. You're going to use like facts, statistics, medical journals, anything from credible authors, credible sources that can back up what you're doing. The more credible your authors are, and especially if they specialize in whatever it is you're quoting from them or taking from their writing, it increases your credibility as a writer. It makes you seem more professional and you have a good basis of what you're doing. When appealing to readers' values, you can use emotional values in your writing, but sometimes this can come across the wrong way and readers might see it as being manipulated into feeling a certain way. Like, oh, this author is using, you know, like imagery or quotes of like from the ASPCA, like Libby had said, like anything like that that might like invoke some kind of like pathos response from your audience, can either be beneficial or be negative ultimately. So you have to be careful when choosing things like that to put in your writing. With a trustworthy tone, you have to make sure that you're providing your own knowledge through facts. You can't just be regurgitating information from like a website or a source or anything like that to your audience. You have to make sure that you're putting your own spin and your own understanding towards it. Otherwise, they might not, again, take you seriously. You have to make sure that you're being fair and honest in your writing so that you're more appealing. When you're considering other opinions and positions in your writing, you have to make sure that you're like educated and very aware of everything else that's going to be argued against you. You have to be prepared to refute and defend your argument, be knowledgeable on all the other viewpoints that could come into play that people might have that you could be questioned on. You have to make sure that you have a really good understanding and basis of your argument and theirs so that they can be compared to one another. When choosing a topic, it's really good to pick something that you're familiar with. So picking something from maybe your everyday life, whether that's school, work, a hobby, anything like that, is a really good strategy because you're more knowledgeable and familiar with the topic. So you can take any of those topics and find a problem, either in your everyday life or a problem that you see others dealing with, maybe a popular like debate topic in like news articles or anything like that that relates to your overall topic that you've chosen, as kind of inspiration for what your writing is going to be, and narrow it down to like one solid idea so that you can always have one thing to base and look for evidence off of and have the rest of this backup for, in case like you don't find enough evidence you think for to make a compelling argument, you can always have like a backup list or like a fail safe. When generating ideas in text, your intent is ultimately to convince your readers of whatever it is you're talking about, writing about, presenting, anything like that. Make sure that you are convincing. You can create an outline of your issue. This includes a thesis, of course. And your thesis doesn't have to be overly complicated as long as it's like a general idea. You have like one topic and maybe like 3 little subsections that you came up with that you're like, well, maybe I can find evidence for this. Keep it. You never know what you'll find or what ideas can spring off of that. You can always elaborate on them later. Just make sure that your reasons and everything are related to the topic that you want to be writing about. You don't want to get carried away in finding some cool fact and being like, oh, I can write a whole paragraph about this. And like ultimately it ends up straying from your main topic and your audience gets disoriented. You also want to make sure that your reasons and topics are distinguishable from another. You don't want to be repeating yourself over and over in paragraphs after paragraph of your writing. And again, your audience will get bored of the repetitiveness and be like, what is this? And you always want to pick your best ideas for your evidence. Make sure that you pick your strongest, most supportable things that will best support your topic, ones that will probably go over the best with an audience, that are either the most convincing or the least controversial, but still like strong. When addressing a hostile audience, using Rogerian writing tactics in this is especially helpful. You want to introduce the overall topic and basically every viewpoint underneath it that could branch off from a neutral basis, just get it across. And then you would develop your individual viewpoint and like why that one would be chosen over the rest of them. For ways of organizing an argument, there's multiple ways of setting up argumentative essays, writings, like speeches, anything you're writing like that. There's so many structures and things. But your last reason that you ever state in your writing should always be your strongest. You want to leave that impression on your audience and the people that are viewing it, which is why you should also put your weakest argument in the middle. It kind of gets lost in the flow. It's not something that's going to be super memorable. And different writing styles and organizations will be tailored to what you're writing. So if, like I said, like when you're addressing like a hostile audience, or like you have to present something to maybe like a group that has like a very differing like belief than yours, and you have to present your topic, you want to maybe go with like Rogerian tactics, anything like that. Like on the next slide, there's a Libby.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
This diagram that shows all of the these different styles of how to support your argument, including like counter arguments, where you can introduce like different things first, just to like get a basis for your structure and develop them different ways depending on what you're working with. So that's the Little Seagull Handbook. So with the 3 ways to respond, yes, no, and okay, but, within the they say, I say. So the 3 ways to respond are essentially stating that either you agree, you disagree, or you see both sides and are on the fence of the argument. It makes it easier to work with and comprehend your writing when you simplify it down to any of these 3 subsections. With disagreeing and explaining why, the disagreeing is what a lot of people find easy in writing, but it's more the why that people struggle with. So you can't just contradict your opponent. You have to go deeper and challenge everything. You have to challenge like all of their evidence and why and where they're getting that from, and maybe like their background or anything like that. You can possibly agree with their position, but it's just their specifics that might be why you disagree with them, and you should have to go into that and develop that. Templates for disagreeing. You can agree partially and flip their argument around. So use their own evidence to support your own. So if someone uses a fact and you're like, well, actually, in my essay, this fact supports my reason. So like, therefore yours is invalid or anything like that, where you can kind of manipulate your opponent's opinion to benefit your own. Agreeing, but with a difference, is essentially just bringing a fresh perspective to your writing. Don't repeat what others have said over and over. Like if you are quoting like some kind of evidence and you find the same like repetitive facts, like take that and twist it to be unique and different. Give it a spin that might bring your essay or your writing a freshness that your audience will enjoy. Templates for agreeing would be adding personal viewpoints, and again, fresh wording to avoid repetitiveness. So when you agree and disagree simultaneously, it takes your writing to a new level of complexity, and it'll really boost your credibility and your trust that your audience has in you as a writer and an author. When you kind of show that you have this complex mindset and thinking, that you can go above and beyond in seeing all the sides and both like contradicting your own argument because of the complexity and stuff. The templates for that would be statements like yes and then but, or anything that is like, oh yes, I would agree with this, and then go into what is actually wrong about it and why it's not entirely correct. They can you would introduce the side you agree with and the other one, and why they can coexist and why they are the way they are, and kind of explain all of that. And is being undecided okay? Sometimes it can cause readers to get frustrated. They make it through your entire writing piece, and then you've ultimately decided that there's no one side that you're going to take as a writer. And this causes some conflict and some dividedness. But in a lot of cases, readers will see this and think that it elevates your writing to a new level of sophistication and credibility as a writer. So that's
Okay. And now for our summary. Number one, the goal of choosing the right genre is to accomplish goals within your audience. This is just how you're going to get the point across to your audience the best. Number two, you should adapt to how you should choose genres to your own rhetorical situations. And number three, look for clues in your audience and your assignments to effectively write for your genre and audience.
The fourth one would be just to make sure that your argument is clear and supportable. Make sure that your audience isn't lost or anything like that. Number five would be that to make sure that you as the writer are well informed and educated on all the views you're going to be talking about. And number six is going to be that your writing style and template accurately reflect your topic. So that was our group 2 presentation on genre and arguments.